Okay. Hello, welcome everyone. Um, so hi, I'm Latifa. I'm co-hosting with Megan as well of ALCLA Native Plants. We are a native plant nursery founded in 1992 and based in Carstairs, Alberta. We acknowledge that we are located in Treaty 7 territory, which has been stewarded for generations by the people of the Siksika, Satapi, or Blackfoot Confederacy, Tsuut'ina, and Iari Nakota First Nations. We are also located in Métis District 4, governed by the Otipemisiwak Métis Government of Alberta. So welcome to the Native Plant Lunch Hour Q&A series. Today's webinar will discuss native plant bed preparation. Please be aware that this webinar is being recorded. And basically, hold on a second. I made some notes, but they're a bit. We didn't get a lot of questions in advance for this particular subject, so I'll start with questions. One question that we had in advance relevant to the topic. We're going to prioritize questions relevant to the specific topic before moving onto other general questions related to propagating native plants. And if you have questions, please just write them into the chat and then we will note them and then we will do our best to respond to your questions. So first, the question that is relevant to bed preparation. I want to create a native plant bed in my front yard. Can you establish native plants in a clay-based soil? Also, should I put a few inches of mulch on a newly established native plant bed? I was told to put 4 to 6 inches of mulch around my plants. So for this question, yes, you can definitely establish native plants in a clay-based soil. And generally speaking, we find the plants pretty adaptable to a range of soils, particularly if you're planting ones that were historically native to your region. And with regarding to the mulch, you can definitely use mulch around the planting. We recommend leaving some space so that the mulch doesn't encroach on cover the plant itself, which can suppress the growth of the plant. 4 to 6 inches is quite a bit, so yeah, you definitely want to have a lot of space around your plants. Make sure it's a fine mulch, not like a thick bark mulch or something that will break down. And also depending on the goals of your planting, whether you want to be like a dense naturalistic planting or whether you want like a more type of formal garden with lots of spacing in between the plants. Megan, is there anything you would like to add onto that?
I think we've kind of covered it, but for the mulch, like the purpose usually for mulch is aesthetics or for weed suppression. So if that is something that you're concerned about, then that's definitely an option, but it's not a necessary step.
Great. And yeah, thanks, Megan. So has there been any questions coming in on the chat?
No questions so far.
So if anyone has any questions, ultimately the purpose of the Q&As for the questions. So yeah, if anyone has any particular question related to native plant bed preparation, if you don't have any questions related to that, but you have another question, please let us know. We do have until 12:30. We have stayed later in previous sessions if there's a ton of questions, but if there isn't, we will just end promptly at 12:30. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, please go ahead and stick them in the chat. Otherwise, Megan, we could just chat about what we would do to prepare a bed.
All right.
Always do that.
So far, nothing's been coming in.
Okay, so I mean, the first step obviously would be making sure, in many cases, there's been other plants there, and most of the time people are dealing with a lot of non-native weedy species. So making sure that you remove weeds. So for example, if you're converting from turf grass, you'll want to remove that. Maybe you'll use a sod cutter, could be at one methodology, or we've done occluding the soil. Solarization is occluding as well, but really ensuring that there's like a kind of create a heat dome that you're creating so that you can kill the plant material and the seed bank. Something that we recently learned was that some of these non-native grasses like quackgrass can remain dormant for a season if they're desiccated. So um, using a material, this was recently offered to me from Emma of Friends of Fish Creek, to use a material that breathes, allows some water to enter so that the humidity is not absent and causing your like quackgrass rhizomes to go dormant in a dry state, and then making sure that the material, so like a landscape fabric basically, and then and you need to do that in the hottest months, so like July, end of June, uh, for example. Anyways, you just need to kill all the unwanted disease, otherwise they will make it more challenging. Yeah, there's a hand up.
I see that they've put it down.
I don't think people can turn their videos on because it's recorded and it goes online. So we didn't want to have anyone's faces, but we can definitely take questions in the chat.
Yeah, or if the chat's not working, because I'm not seeing any comments or anything, you can put your question in the Q&A as well.
Yeah, it works for me, but
Oh yeah.
we have been having some technical issues, so that could be one. Well, in any case, so anyways, we can keep
Yes,
chatting about it. Weed suppression, removing the existing material, depleting the seed bank is a good strategy before even starting. So especially if the site you're working with is very weedy and, or as I said, already had an existing vegetation, dense vegetation.
for
Megan,
sure.
do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's the main thing is to establish your goals before you start planting, and then yeah, think about how you're going to manage that site. So how much effort are you actually willing to put in? How much space are you going to be able to maintain, because weeding does take a lot of time. So um, yeah, mulch is definitely an option, or dense planting is definitely an option, but to have that kind of plan ahead of time before you start is always useful. Um, and I would also say that I guess a lot of people think that you need to add amendments to the soil. We've got that question quite a few times. Um, I think that makes sense in like a closed system. Oh, Linda has her hand up again. Are you right? Okay.
Hello. Hello. Oh, no.
Hello? Oh, Linda says that they can now access the chat. So I guess the chat was not accessible for some reason. It was blocked before, but it says on my end that participants can send messages. Okay, here's a question. Is there a good alternative to Roundup to remove crabgrass? And this is when solarization is not feasible. All right, and the Q&A is starting up as well. Okay, it seems like the chat is blocked for most people, so if you just want to put your questions in the Q&A, that will solve that problem. Sorry, Latifa, you're just on mute.
Yeah, I muted myself. So, yeah. So just to clarify, Linda, if it's a large area, is it a large area or a small area? For smaller areas, you can just, as I said, use a sod cutter. I'm not sure, by crabgrass, do you mean quack grass? Like our region doesn't, it's too cold for crabgrass, but uh, I'm guessing maybe quack grass or something. Um, and the sod cutter didn't work last year. Okay, so in something like that, you could rototill the area if there's not a lot of big tree roots and rocks. And then you could rake up all the plant material that way. That would be one strategy. Any thoughts, Megan?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, if you're not gonna do, yeah, solarization, then I would cover it. Or, I mean, if it's a large area, you're not gonna be able to dig it out. So covering is the best option, I think. Okay, we've got a second question here. I have a raised bed in full sun, but it gets very wet with rain running off the roof of an adjacent pergola. Any advice to prepare the bed so my plants don't drown?
Okay. I would just suggest, if you have a low area, just choosing plants that can handle seasonal flooding or inundation. Most prairie species, I'm assuming you're coming from the prairies, uh, if they're in a wet area, can actually handle quite a bit of drought as well. So if there's periods of drought, because there is seasonal periods where like there's ephemeral wetlands or ephemeral moist spaces. So it really just depends, like if it's so it's a raised bed. I'm not sure if the raised bed is continuous with the ground soil or not. If it's contained, that can potentially be an issue. So I'm assuming hopefully there's like nice drainage in the bed, and if there isn't, that could be something to consider. So then just choosing plants that can handle a lot of water, like it could be tufted hair grass if you wanted grasses, or I don't know why, giant wild rice coming to my head. We put in water parsnip. We grew water parsnip last year. Even the blue flag iris, the western blue flag iris, is a wetland species that does really well in dry. So I would just choose species that can handle that. Yeah, that's my suggestion. And let's see if Megan has any thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best route, is to pick plants that can do well there. I would also maybe suggest that the medium that you have in your raised bed is well draining. So, and hopefully it does have drainage at the bottom, and that way the water's not pooling as much. Or, you can put a rain barrel there instead of a plant bed. Okay, we have another question here. How deep will solarization with breathable geotextile above eradicate quack grass? I found the roots at least 3 feet down and strangling my perennial bush and plant roots.
I would say, so that's interesting. We've had pretty good success with our occlusion. I said it wasn't specifically solarization in the sense that we weren't creating a heat dome. We've had pretty good success. We've had some coming back in future years from rhizome, but we've not had issues of stuff of crackgrass coming back from the roots so much as the rhizomes specifically. So yeah, that for Friends of Fish Creek, they do, I think, 3 to 6 weeks solarization. And I mean, that's in very weedy area of Fish Creek Park. Like in terms of like the grass establishment, non-native grass establishment is very extensive and they find it very successful. So we've all had quite good success with the removal of quackgrass, and it doesn't mean 100% is always killed. There can always be some follow-up weed management, but yeah, typically I would say it's mainly the rhizomes that you're mostly concerned of once you kill the main plant, but maybe Megan can talk to that as well.
Yeah, I don't know how deep solarization would work. I'm unsure about that, but I think the main thing is you want to kill the seed bank and kill what's there. So it's not going to be 100%, but and then things will always come back in as well. But it's going to reduce your management over time. It's going to and reduce your labor for that first season there that you've like taken the time to do that. But I don't know if yeah, I don't know how deep. That's interesting. I'm not sure. That's an interesting question.
Yeah, it is because we haven't had most of our rhizomatous grasses that we've dealt with a very shallow root system. So it's a surprise that it's so deep. Yeah, but you just have to keep working at it, I would say, in terms of suppressing the growth and then removing any new propagules that come through and over and over and over again, and creating barriers. So if it's coming in from a neighbor's yard or from a public space, like creating a barrier to prevent that, because we don't usually put more than 6 inches depth on, like, for edging and stuff like that to keep rhizomes from creeping. So you're not going to get any rhizome movement at a depth beyond 6 inches typically for a grass. It's not, yeah. So the root systems in and of themselves, if you, yeah, I suppose they could come back, but that's not something I've experienced. So we've mainly been able to, I don't know, kill them pretty effectively with occlusion. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. No more questions coming in at this time. That's all we've got. Oh, we've got, okay. Shannon would like to say something.
I think my mic is on now.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. I was told by kind of a gardening expert a while back that if I was going to create a native plant bed in my front yard, which is just grass right now, that I'd need to dig it out like a foot deep and like at least a foot deep and have really good soil and plant my plants and then have like 6 inches of mulch on top of them. That seems kind of extreme to me. And I missed the beginning of this call. I don't know if you covered kind of the basics, but is that kind of just a general suggestion when you're doing something like this? Or do you have to dig so deep and use so much mulch, etc.?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would say absolutely not necessary. That seems crazy. That seems so intense. Definitely removing grass for sure because you can't just plant into sod or something. But most sod grass, the roots don't go that deep. I've taken sod out with an edger. It's not. Yeah, you don't need to be digging it out. Like that's too much. And mulch is something that you can use as a tool to reduce your labor for weeding, or if you like the look aesthetically, but it's not something that's needed for the plant. And as for amendments, like adding compost or organic matter or fertilizers and things like that, also, in my experience, not necessary. Your outside is not a closed system. You have inputs already. Um, so in and like I would ask yourself like why you would have to be doing those things, like what's the purpose behind them. What do you like know what your plants need exactly? Probably not. Do you know what your soil is like? Probably not. So yeah, I don't think amendments is a necessary step either.
Okay, well, that's a relief. That's one less barrier to me starting then. So thank you.
For sure, thank you.
Like anyone else, I'm not quite sure. I do apologize about the chats. I will have to troubleshoot why this is happening because we haven't had issues in the past. So why now? It's doing this, and it's hard to test it when no one's in the chat. We don't realize because yours says it's open, right, Megan?
Yeah, it says it's open and it says that everyone can participate in the messages. So I am not sure what's going on.
Um, so, but if anyone feel free if you want to put your hand up, and if you're having technical issues, we'll get to you. We can let you participate as Shannon did, either by voice or again, there is a Q&A section as well. If there's any other questions, doesn't have to be related to bed preparation. I think we have time to take like one or two more questions, and then we can wrap up for today. And everyone will get a recording as well.
Nice. Okay. All right, you should be all set up there. Sorry, Sydney, did you have a question?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
you're all good.
Okay. Sorry, I wasn't sure. Yeah, something with the mic. Yeah, I just had a question about in my backyard, I have a crabapple tree and it's an older, mature one. So it has tons of fruit and it lands over a large space of my yard. And I'm worried about the acidity of it near native garden. You think that's a problem at all?
it shouldn't be a problem with the crabapple tree. The biggest issue in like the prairie regions, if you're growing trees and perennials nearby, is just the water use of trees. They take up a lot of water, so there's a lot of competition. So in terms of establishing plants, you may need to water more frequently than otherwise because they're competing with water from the tree, particularly during periods of drought. And for establishing, it's usually 1 to 2 years max. For most perennials that they might need water supplementation. If they're needing water supplementation beyond that, then it's probably a plant that's maybe not in the right place. Like maybe it's just really just too dry for that plant to really thrive, or maybe they're growing but they're just like dying back early in the season, for example. That could be another, which may or may not really be an issue. It's just indicating that it's becoming too dry for them. So acidity is not, we're certainly not for the crabapple trees that I wouldn't be worried about that, but more about the drought competition and if there's any partial shading as well. So there's a lot of species you could choose that are drought tolerant and do well in part shade and can compete with trees. So we've put a lot in under our spruce trees, which is a different tree, but same kind of issue of competing with water. We've put a lot of bed straws, so gallium species. So you could put northern bed straw or sweet scented bed straw. Canada anemone is always a good choice, but is aggressive. So if you want something that will fill quick, like once they establish, they can fill quickly. Columbines, you can put delphiniums, but they'll be just smaller than in a wet space. Baneberry, we put in some creeping raspberries. We put in some of the showy aster as well. So there's a lot of different possibilities as long as it's suitable to that particular area. I think we've often recommended like rosy pussy toes or field pussy toes. And then I'll let Megan, if Megan has anything to add on that.
I don't think so. I think you covered it well. I would also maybe say that, yeah, I think most of the time people do think that underneath trees is more acidic and therefore their plants aren't doing well, but it is usually just the dryness and competition of the trees. So that's a bit of a myth, that's the thing.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Okay, great. So if that's all the questions, I will just do some short announcements and we can end it there. So just to let folks know, we do have a promotion on our website. If you sign up to the newsletter, you get $10 off orders over $100. So you just would sign up at alclanativeplants.com. We are hosting our next online webinar next week, which is Wednesday, March 25th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. The topic is edible native plants. So if you're interested in learning which native plants are edible and how to prepare them, recipes are included, and there'll be a recipe handout at the end. And these are ticketed events, but it's a sliding scale, so we offer discounted rates to improve access for those who need that support. But yeah, we'll covering, fireweed, how to prepare it, and so forth, how to make fireweed tea and those kind of things. So lots of great information based on my own personal experience of eating and preparing foods from many of these edible native plants. We also will be in person at 2 live events coming up this weekend. So we'll be at CD Saturday in Calgary, which is at the Bowness Community Center from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And if anyone's joining in from Edmonton, we will also be at CD Sunday in Edmonton this coming Sunday, which is March 22nd, at the Alberta Avenue Community Center from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then the last free lunch hour Q&A will be on April 22nd, and it will be converting your lawn to native plants. So we will discuss specifically methods to replace traditional turf with diverse, resilient native species that support biodiversity and reduce maintenance. So kind of similar to some of the themes today, but again, at the same time, we welcome any questions related to native plants that might be of interest as well. So that will be the last chance this spring to get in on the free Q&A. So if you have any burning questions, please do join us then. And if that's it, we're happy to close. If there's any last minute questions, that's fine too. We have like 2 more minutes.
Yeah, so we got a couple more if you want.
Sure, we might as well, because we had a bit of a slow start here with the technical difficulties. We got to look into what's going on here.
All right, so is there a particular time of the year that is easiest to cut out grass?
I would think the spring, when the ground is softer. Wouldn't you, Megan?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Before they wake up.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other point too. Yeah. So.
Okay, we have how far in advance do I need to prepare the bed before planting? Can it be a weekend project?
It depends. If you have weeds, if it's like, as I said, with a lot of plant material, I would recommend taking the time to get rid of as much weedy material as you can, which can be as much as 1 to 2 months to a full season. But if it's already a prepared bed and it's already in a good shape, or if it's just got a few dandelions or whatever, you can just dig them out. And if the soil has been bare for a while, and there is a potential for weed seeds to have come in over time. And so that is something that is always going to be an issue, but particularly where there's areas of bare soil. So if it had been a bed and you left it, you might want to, one strategy people use is like they'll water the area really well, and then see whatever comes up and germinates in that next week, they just will remove it all, and then you can do that multiple times. So it just depends on the state of the bed beforehand. But if it's already like a perennial bed, yeah, and you can just go ahead and just plant into it. Or if you're just removing sod, you can probably, that could be done on a weekend. Remove the sod and then plant into it. Shouldn't be an issue. So and Megan, any additional insights?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think that like it's basically what you want to do. Like, do you want to dig out all the stuff, or do you want to wait and just cover it? It's how much labor you want to put in and how impatient you are. I know for me that I'm a weekend projector. I'm not a cover for a couple months person because I get impatient. I want to see them in there. But it might be easier to cover them for a few months, or if you have a huge area to cover. So how big your space is something to consider as well. And we do have one final question here. Are there any native plants that voles might avoid burrowing under?
I'm not 100% sure, but I would expect potentially like maybe plants that are a little bit more toxic to them, which I couldn't say off the top of my head that I know for sure, but maybe something like a delphinium or a columbine could have higher toxicity. But yeah, the other thing you can do for rodents is think about other types of barriers, like we discuss a lot the use of like scent. So whether it's like animal or human, it can be human urine as well. So urine is really effective, or hair, dog hair around the perimeter of plantings. Those are really like non-toxic ways to deter rodents. You can also use like physical barriers like chicken wire or something finer meshed. And we actually have dug that into the ground in certain areas where we need more of a barrier. It could be a temporary thing just while you're getting plants established. So yeah, I guess it depends on the extent of the problem you're having. I'm not aware like if there's really a good resource on like what plants deter voles that are native plants. That's not something I'm specifically aware of, but definitely animals tend to avoid plants that are more toxic, or maybe have a really strong smell, like onions. Could be a deterrent. That might be something that I'm not 100% sure. Some animals will go for the onions, so this depends. Yeah, Megan, any thoughts on that?
Um, I don't know. It's an interesting question. I don't know if any plants deter voles, but maybe you could just try to plant things with fibrous roots where the disturbance of voles won't be as dramatically horrible to the plant. But yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think in general, like planting native plants does attract wildlife, and there can be positive, but there can be some challenges with that. So it can be a bit of a learning curve as you figure out what works. And we've certainly lost plants at times to pocket gophers and such. And we've had to at times use traps and stuff. I don't like to do that, but I've had to in some situations. With a pocket gopher, you can't really they'll just keep eating in the same spot, so you have to kind of move them. But yeah, we try as much as possible to not harm any living beings. And yeah, as I said, we use urine a lot more as a barrier as well to deter wildlife from certain areas. But we'll see how it goes this year, because we've got some wood lilies that just cannot get a break. They're always being eaten by rodents. So despite all the other food, they have to go for the 3 1-inch long lily leaves. So it is, and we just set up urine last fall, so we'll see some urine containers of urine. So we'll see how it goes. And I'll let folks know if it was really successful. Hopefully it works out. Otherwise, we'll be digging in some putting in some mesh or something around them. Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. Thanks for joining us today, and hope to see you out this weekend for CD Saturday or Sunday. If anyone's doing that, it's always a fun event. So yeah, have happy planting, everyone. Oh, and I should say the live plants are now online. So for anyone who wants to pre-order, they're now online and ready for order for pickup or shipping in May. Okay, great. Have a great day, everyone.